How do you start your morning? On the morning of January 24th, 1989, Ted Bundy was the center of attention at a wild 550-person strong tailgate party overflowing with beer, tits, and pickup trucks as far as the eye could see. Only, instead of ripping keg stands to chants like, "Go, team, go!" he found himself strapped into the electric chair as the crowd outside cheered, "Burn, Bundy, burn!" Aspiring lawyer/male model turned rapist murdering psychopath, Ted Bundy was actually born Theodore Cowell. He was raised by his grandparents, believing that his birth mother was actually his sister. Why? To hide the fact that he was born an illegitimate child to a 22-year-old single mother in 1946. I guess it's better to confuse the shit out of a child than to have your neighbors know you had a one-night stand with a retired Air Force veteran. When Theodore was 3 years old, Louise, his sister, mother, whatever you want to call her, took the budding woman killer and moved to Tacoma, Washington. Eventually, she met and married Army hospital cook Johnny Bundy in 1951. Jealous of his mother-sister's new relationship, one day Theodore concocted a plan to show his new stepfather who's boss. So, while on a family shopping excursion to Sears, little Teddy threw a massive temper tantrum, deliberately pissing his pants as part of a display. Why? I don't know. Maybe he didn't like his stepfather fucking his big sis. Who knows?
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
Relations between Bundy and his working-class stepfather were tense.
You little son of a bitch! My father!
He couldn't afford to buy superficial Ted's sweet designer turtleneck shirts like this. And that just never sat right with Bundy Jr. Bundy fantasized about being adopted by popular Western stars Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. Why? Because they could afford to buy him sweet bow ties like this. He also grew to disdain his stepfather's intellect, even mocking him and provoking him, presumably by pissing his pants on command in public.
Go!
Bundy would sometimes masturbate inside storage closets at his junior high school, getting doused with water when classmates caught him. What? What, did they think he was a fucking cat or something? Who needs discipline, expulsion, or therapy when you got a spray bottle? Hey, quit it. No jerking off. Quit it. Now, for some reason, the guy who couldn't stop jerking off in the janitor's closet had a hard time getting dates in high school. I guess getting caught with your pants down, pulling your pud like 15, 16 times in front of the entire class is a reputation ruiner. Who would have thought? As Bundy would go on to explain in his own words, it wasn't that I disliked women or were afraid of them. It was just that I didn't seem to have an inkling as to what to do about them. Oh, really? Ted Bundy, notorious rapist and murderer, didn't know how to interact with women? Whoa, big surprise there.
I have a rapist wit.
Bundy graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in psychology in 1972.
From my view, he does that because he wants to be able to continue to manipulate people.
And although he was accepted to law school in Utah, he never went on to earn his degree. Rumor has it he was concerned that prosecuting murders while murdering people could potentially be a conflict of interest. While a student at Washington University, Bundy fell in love with Diane Edwards, a wealthy, pretty young woman from California. She had everything he wanted: money, class, and influence. Finally, he'd be able to afford all of those sweet bow ties and turtleneck sweaters his stepfather could never afford to buy him. Although Ted was devastated by their breakup, he managed to not strangle her on the spot and piss his pants in protest.
I wet my pants again!
No, Ted had bigger plans.
I need some new pants!
Now, Bundy was just like anybody else. He'd wake up in the morning and put his fake cast on one arm at a time. A master of disguise, he found that by faking an injury, he could approach vulnerable women, using their compassion against them. With a cast on his arm, or a set of crutches, he would limp around with a set of textbooks in hand, waiting for the right moment to trip and, oh no, I've dropped my law books. If only there were a pretty young lady around who resembles my bitch of an ex-girlfriend. When a young lady would help the struggling stranger carry his books to his tan 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, Bundy would strike.
Can I help you with that?
Would you?
Now, you would think that a sex-crazed, murdering lunatic would operate under the cover of darkness. But not Ted Bundy. He made a habit of abducting women in broad daylight, sometimes from crowded places.
Literally thousands of witnesses, but the witnesses did not know what they were seeing.
He would even occasionally use his own name. Yeah, because no one's going to remember the overly desperate guy in the cast who goes by Ted, roaming from person to person on a crowded beach, begging beautiful sunbathers to help him get his boat down from the roof racks of his car. This habit quickly led to a sketch being published on the front page, along with the name Ted.
The publication of the description of the man called Ted.
The information was so damning that a close friend, a co-worker, a psychology professor, and even his own girlfriend gave his name to the police.
She called the police more than once, stating that she believed her boyfriend, Ted Bundy, was the killer.
I mean, what a fucking dumb move. I know this might sound obvious, but remember, if you're gonna commit the worst crime known to man, don't wade through a sea of cameras and spend hours making friends with potential witnesses while using your real name. But in the end, it wasn't enough to bring Ted to justice. With the heat on him, Ted packed his bags and headed for Utah.
Shortly after 7 o'clock on the evening of November the 8th, 1974, Carol DeRange parked her car in this parking lot at the Fashion Mall.
Posing as Officer Roslyn. Wow, he didn't use his real name this time. Step in the right direction.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
Bundy attempted to abduct the wrong woman, 18-year-old Carol DeRange. Although she was suspicious of the stranger, she eventually agreed to ride with him after he produced a convincing-looking badge. Bundy couldn't believe it. He didn't even have to piss his pants in protest. Diana sensed things were wrong when he pulled over and she noticed that the passenger side door didn't have an easily accessible handle.
She jumped out of the car. The man jumped out, waving what looked like a crowbar.
But chasing a woman down the street while screaming and waving around a crowbar, it's not a good look. So Bundy had no choice but to tuck his tail between his legs and retreat.
So this is the first time we have an eyewitness of somebody who survives a Bundy attack.
That's yet another city that's too hot now. Let's see, where to next?
Ted Bundy's got to find a place where there's not a lot of talk about missing women.
So Ted moved to Aspen, Colorado for a little R&R, but accidentally ended up committing murder like 3 or 4 more times. So back to Utah he goes. Probably not the best place to go, as it's the state with the only surviving witness, but whatever.
He chose poorly.
While parked in his car, spying on 2 women on August 15th, 1975, Patrol Sergeant Bob Hayward pulled over Bundy in his beat-up Volkswagen Beetle.
In his car, he had what we would call burglary tools.
Burglary tools? Let's see, what do we got? A crowbar, a box of large green plastic garbage bags, an ice pick, a flashlight, a pair of gloves, torn strips of sheeting, a ski mask, a pair of handcuffs, and an additional mask made from pantyhose.
What we would call burglary tools.
That's not a fucking burglary kit. That's a kill kit.
I says, what do you use handcuffs for? I'm a law student, he says, I use them in my classes.
Right, yeah, because lawyers are always arresting and handcuffing their clients. It would be more believable if he just said that he was an aspiring actor on his way to audition for the role of a serial killer.
I said, there's something wrong with this guy.
On October 2nd, 1975, Bundy found himself in a police lineup. No big deal. It was going to take more than some pussy police lineup to bring down the great Ted Bundy. Remember, this guy dropped out of law school.
He made all sorts of attempts to make himself facially difficult to identify. He parted his hair on the other side.
Ooh, I've parted my hair on the other side. I'd like to see them recognize me now.
Carol DeRange came to the police station, was shown a lineup, and was able to identify Bundy as the person who attacked her.
Bundy was arrested and charged with attempting to kidnap Carol DeRange and was sentenced to prison in Utah. While in prison, investigators linked Bundy to one of the murders he committed in Colorado and extradited him to Aspen to stand trial.
I'm not guilty.
Being the failed law student that he was, Bundy decided that he would defend himself because, like any good lawyer worth his salt will tell you, you should always represent yourself, especially if you're accused of murder. But Bundy never really intended to defend himself. Yet, anyway. He had other plans.
You think about getting out of here? Well, legally, sure.
Allowed access to the law library at the county courthouse, an unshackled and unguarded Bundy found his way to the janitor's closet for a hot date with Pamela Henderson. Just kidding.
Bundy jumped out of this second-story window at the front of the Pitkin County Courthouse this morning. At both ends of town, the sheriff's department put up roadblocks.
A free man, he spent the next few months living carefree, sipping on champagne, kicking back at a mountainside chalet with more babes to bludgeon and strangle to death than he knew what to do with.
She says, no, but that's a real nice ski mask.
Sorry, I mean, he was captured 6 days after nearly starving to death, stealing a Cadillac and cruising through the streets of downtown Aspen.
He was a terrible driver, by the way. They see this car weaving. It must be a drunk. He wasn't drunk, it was Ted Bundy.
Following his brief escape, Bundy was moved to a secure facility in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It turns out that nearly starving to death in the mountains surrounding Aspen has its benefits. He was now thin enough to contort his body and squeeze through an opening in the ceiling of his cell.
There was a light fixture that was due to be welded. It had not been welded.
Bundy crawled through the ductwork like John McClane and eventually dropped down into the closet of the jailer's apartment. He couldn't believe his luck. After taking 5 to shake hands with the milkman, Bundy changed his clothes and escaped once again. However, this time, he not only managed to escape Glenwood Springs, but the state of Colorado altogether.
We're looking everywhere, trains, buses, and the usual thing. I have no idea where he is.
As one of the most wanted men in America, Bundy knew that if he wanted to keep his freedom, he needed to go straight and commit to a crime-free lifestyle.
Sometimes the urges become such a compulsion that they can't control themselves.
So, he went on what can only be described as one of the most frenzied killing sprees in American history, sneaking into a sorority house at Florida State University and brutally attacking 4 women, 2 of which succumbed to their injuries. But that wasn't enough. Just a few blocks away, he entered another home where he attacked yet another student. On February 9th, 1978, Bundy would kill for the last time. As if trying to go down as the biggest monster to walk the earth, this time, his victim was a 12-year-old girl. After getting pulled over in a stolen vehicle on February 15th, 1978, Bundy's reign of terror finally came to an end. But Bundy had an ace up his sleeve. Remember, he was a law school dropout, and as he was in fact responsible for the crimes he was being accused of, he knew the ins and outs of the case like nobody else. Who better to represent Ted Bundy than Ted Bundy himself?
You're going to represent yourself, or you're going to get another attorney?
I'm staying with the man I know best right now, and that's me.
So that's exactly what he did. Oh yeah, and he even leveraged his new status as a criminal defense lawyer to propose to his new girlfriend in court. And because this is Ted Bundy we're talking about, he thought the jury would stand up and cheer and congratulate him on his engagement. But instead, they just immediately sentenced him to death. I guess for Bundy, till death do us part was like 20 minutes or so. Just kidding. He remained on death row for 10 years, where he attempted to use his knowledge of his crimes as leverage in an attempt to escape execution. But in the end, it wasn't enough. I think you know what happened next.
There were thousands of people outside.
So, what do you think? Is an execution an appropriate place to do a keg stand? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to murder that subscribe button and hit that notification bell because we got new content dropping all the time. And if you just can't get enough, you can also hop over and follow us on Instagram and TikTok for even more killer content.